Well, hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great day today. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of Take 5. We are breaking down the message that I preached this past Sunday entitled Next Generation Faith. This is going to be a series for a couple of weeks as we're going to look at the effects that generations should have upon the succeeding generations and how that's our responsibility, how that was God's intention for faith, a true heritage of faith to perpetuate from generation to generation. And every generation has a job to make sure that we do that. We're reading from Psalm 78, the first 8 verses there, which I really don't think you could get a cleaner, more beautiful picture of what we're talking about than in those 8 verses right there. I'm going to read the first 4 to you, and then we're going to look at it from the Passion Translation. We're looking at verse 3 through 8, one verse at a time, the rest of the week. But I want to read the first 4, and then we're going to look at it from the Passion Translation and talk about what we're going to look at today. This is what he says: "My people, hear my teachings, listen to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth with a parable. I will utter hidden things from old. Things we have heard and known, things our ancestors have told us. We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, His power, and the wonders He has done." Yesterday, we looked at verse number 3 from the Passion Translation. It says, "We heard true stories from our fathers about our rich heritage." And that's what we have. Verse number 4, what we're going to look at today, says this: "We will continue to tell our children and not hide from the rising generation the great marvels of our God, His miracles and power that have brought us all this far." We will continue to tell them. Now, notice that's something that is important, because there are a lot of things that will try to prevent you from telling them. And so we must continue. Not only that, but you also have to consider the fact that there are just some people in the following generation, they don't want it. They don't want it. That's been that way in every generation. So I'm not downplaying the generation following me. I'm not doing that. But there's some people that just don't want it. Some people that are going to deny it and say, "That's not for me. I'm not going to do that. I don't want that. That's not important to me." And there's nothing we can do about it. But we continue to tell. We don't stop just because a generation seems disinterested. We don't do that. I watched people in generations before me, people that I looked up to at one time and still do. Most they're gone on to be with the Lord. Most of them are. But they came towards the end of their life and they stopped. Because they said it's not like it used to be. Things aren't nobody's telling the truth anymore. It's not this, it's not. Listen. It doesn't matter if people are or they're not. Our responsibility is to continue to tell it. Continue to pass that tradition down. Somebody will pick it up. I did, and others like me did. So somebody will pick it up, but you've got to continue to tell and not hide from that rising generation the great marvels of God. Now, we've got to be faithful in handing these truths down to future times and not let anything prevent us from doing so. We stand between past generations and the generations that are to come, and we have been entrusted by those that have gone on before us with the great and important truths of God's person and His power and His purpose for His church. And our responsibility is to preserve and to hand off these truths in all purity to future generations, making sure they're not corrupted or impaired during the handoff. Because a lot of times that happens. We've got to be careful to pass the truths of God and faith and worship and faithful service and church and giving and mission work and all of these things. We've got to be careful to pass that off to rising generations and not taint it with unnecessary tradition. Now that's so important. They just need the truth. They don't need our unnecessary tradition. And every generation has it. The one that was, the one that is, the one that is to come. Every generation somewhere along the way has unnecessary tradition that for some reason we try to pass it off as, like biblical truth because we feel it's that way because it was a part of our generation and our experience and worship. And we cannot do that. We cannot pass off our preferences and styles and genres as truth. We can't do that. God's not interested in preference and style and genre as long as it doesn't violate His Word. He's not interested in that. And so we've got to be careful to do that. One way we did it in the church was the transition from Southern gospel hymns and things like that into more of the worship music and praise type music and things like that. That transition. And we tried our best, some did, to pass that off and say, no, it's got to be this way. It's got to be out of that redback hymnal. If it's not out, and this is just an example. Now, there are thousands of other things, but this is just an example. If it's not out of that green hymnal, if it's not out of this, if it's not, it just cannot be the truth. And what we were doing, we were passing down truth, but we were also passing down some that had been tainted by unnecessary traditions. And my generation is going to have to make sure we don't do it, and the next generation is going to have to make sure they don't do it, because preference is going to change from generation to generation. But God's truth, His power, it will always be the same. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. In every generation, He is the same. So the coming generations, they're going to need the knowledge of God that we possess. And they can do without, and hopefully they will outgrow our systems of, philosophy and our religious formulas. Some of those things they just did not need. But our knowledge of God, especially revealed in Jesus Christ and the plan of redemption, the generations that are to come, they will need it. And if they don't have that, they will be outdone. They will be lost forever without that. So our responsibility is to continue to share. Continue to tell all the way to our dying day, to continue to tell the great things of God, to continue to strive to pass down this great rich heritage of faith. But we've got to do it with purity and make sure we're not trying to pass down some of our unnecessary traditions and religious formulas as well. They don't need that. They just need the absolute truth of God. Some of that stuff that we threw in there, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with some of that stuff that when you go back and look at modes of dress and the way people carried themselves and, no TV and no makeup and ladies no pants and all of that stuff. If you've been in church like me any amount of time, you're aware of all of that. Some of that stuff we tried to pass down was just unnecessary. It was tainting the truth. It was unnecessary tradition. They need the truth. That's what they need. I'm here because of the truth. I'm not here because of a tradition that had to do with a hymn book or a style of dress. I'm here because of Jesus Christ and the power of Almighty God. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm saved. And that's why every generation will as well. Hey, it's our responsibility to continue to tell them of the great goodness of God in the days to come. Hey, I've got to get out of here. It's been good being with you today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Thursday's edition of Take 5. Till then, God bless you. Have a great day. Hey, trust the Lord, my friend. He will never fail you.